when you guys decided to start forming this union, I guess before the anti-union efforts came, how did you galvanize enough people in your workforce to be able to make it a tangible threat to the company?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I told my coworkers about it and they were like, "Oh yeah, like that sounds like a good idea. I support you." Um and I think COVID like really drove it home for me and my coworkers and presumably a lot of other Lush employees, because it was like this is the time. Like these are the absolute worst conditions you could possibly work in.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I've got two members of the newly forming Lush Union here to talk about their unionization efforts. Do you want to give everyone a quick introduction to yourselves and what you're doing?
You want to go first?
No.
All right. Hi, my name's Max. I've been working for Lush for 6 years. I work in San Francisco, and I'm a retail employee. And me and Chris are the founders of GLUE, the Global Lush Union. So that's kind of it.
And my name is Chris. I work at the Toronto warehouse as warehouse distribution, online ordering. I was involved with the union effort that started in sort of September, October of 2019 or 2020. And co-founder with Max and a couple other people, the Global Lush Union. Really happy to be here. Thanks for having us on.
Absolute pleasure. So why don't we start a little bit with giving everyone a quick background to Lush, because I know Lush as the beauty products and creams and stuff like that, and obviously they're usually in the news for animal welfare and those kind of things. So why don't you give everyone a little background to the company itself?
You want to go for it, Chris?
Okay. I mean, I can give a little bit of background. I started in 2019. I think Max might be able to give a bit better background. But Lush is a company founded on sort of like this idea of ethical production, right? Ethical cosmetics, and that starts with I think they split off from the Body Shop. The company was founded in the UK, split off from the Body Shop in I might be wrong, but I think the early to mid 90s. And their whole thing was they didn't want to test on animals. And they were one of the pioneers with that. And sort of a lot of the company's image stems from that initial step out of the box. And so they style themselves as a very ethical company. And this extends to buying policies that include, unionization and workers' rights, standing up, embedding themselves in sort of other social movements, be it, LGBTQ plus rights, Black Lives Matter, the environmental movement quite largely, and trans rights, migrant rights as well. That's to name a few of the campaigns that have been going on, at least since I've been there. But they really embed themselves in that sort of thing, and that's one of the reasons why I started working there in the first place. Was I actually got hired at Amazon at the same time as I got hired at Lush.
Oh, no way.
And I thought to myself, if I got to pick between these two companies, right, like I'm going to go with Lush because it's going to be so much better than Amazon. And I think there's a little bit more nuance to it than that. The image doesn't really match the reality, especially when it comes to people working there.
Can I quickly interject that I remember, and you can correct me if this is wrong, Lush products, while they were saying they don't want to test on animals, you legally can't have beauty and cosmetic products sold in this country or in America without testing on animals to a certain extent. So they had to actually change a lot of their branding to say that while we test on animals, we support like ethical animal testing or something to that effect.
That would be the first I've heard of.
Oh, okay.
I know they had, I don't know if it was a manufacturing or just a store in China, but this is what they told us, that they had to test on animals in order to like sell products there, like beauty products. Mm-hmm. So they pulled their stores and maybe their manufacturing from there. But that's just kind of what I've heard kind of through the Lush grapevine.
Okay. So you joined this company because they seem to be on the surface incredibly enlightened on a number of topics. And then tell me about what you learn as workers.
I'll give a quick overview. Mm-hmm. There's a couple, I was hired on a seasonal contract, which if we get the chance a bit later, I'd like to expand on how that's I think, a significantly exploitative practice. What it is you're hired for like a 3 month period. In my case, it was a 3 month period, first September through to December. Um, and it's that sort of like a second tier employee. So I didn't have benefits, a little bit of a lower wage, and very little job security. And for me, I was extended on that contract, which kept me as a second tier employee for about a year and a half straight. And then there was a break, and then back again. And so, you have people who are on these contracts 4, 5, 6 years in a row who are at sort of like a second tier, second class employee. And, that was one of the things that I thought was pretty bad. But overall, and I think this can be said about a lot of companies, is, when you have anything that's kind of top down, like a union is about, it's about democracy, right? It's about everybody having a voice. And when you don't have that, what you have is a lack of accountability that I think everybody felt, a sense of favoritism when it comes to sort of moving up in the company, and just a general sense that sort of our voices, our needs weren't being very well reflected. Um, I don't think that's necessarily unique to Lush. I think their reaction compared to their values has been very, very unique to Lush. I don't think any company puts out as progressive of an image as Lush does that I can think of. And when we started organizing, they made it very clear that they were staunchly anti-union, and they were very willing to use whatever means they could to bust the union, including leaflets, captive audience meetings, and some terminations.
Why don't you start at the start of that process? Like, how did you get together and decide we're going to try and form a union? And obviously, at great danger to your job prospects, right?
Mm-hmm. So we first started talking about this in around the summer of 2020, end of the summer of 2020. So this is sort of through the thick of COVID, and I think COVID was a big learning experience for a lot of people in a lot of jobs. I think that, in my opinion, Lush was a little bit slow to react to some of the changes. They, in terms of like health and safety stuff, I think that what really became apparent was that how many seasonal workers were working at that period in time. A lot of us were working in the warehouse, and the warehouse increased in demand. Is at the time that the stores were shutting down, we do a lot of the online distribution, so the work got harder. There was greater demand. At the same time, the company cut our bonus program, which meant that we were effectively doing more work for less money. A lot of us with no stability and no benefits. And whether seasonal or core, I think there was this general sense of what's going on here. Why aren't we getting any information? Why aren't we being included in the decision making process for these changes? And why is it on us to make all of this work when we don't see any of the benefit? And I think that's where the impetus for organizing came from. And we started talking about it. We met with some organizers from Workers United Canada Council, and we got a good group of people together. We sent a letter after we had a few meetings. We sent a letter to Mark Wolverton, who's the CEO, and sort of going by Lush's image. A lot of us still had this really great view of Lush as a company at the time, thinking that well, this is sort of a blip. Maybe this is a way that we can all get what we want. And I still see that having a union is a better thing for the company, as well as for all the employees. And that's where we were coming from. And we sent this letter and said, hey, we have these issues. We want to deal with them, but we want to deal with them directly. We want to deal with them with some agency for ourselves. We want to deal with them on equal footing, not as people who just sort of say, hey, this is what we want. And you say, great, you wanted A, we're going to give you B, and you better be happy. And we sent that letter, and immediately the anti-union campaign started.
Could you just quickly, before we get to that, talk a little bit about, did you guys have different trials and tribulations as a result of COVID? Because I know, like you said, you were almost working for Amazon. They got a lot of flack for basically forcing employees to work in unsafe working conditions for a long time. Was it a similar situation in Lush?
I mean, I think for retail, it was kind of like a store by store basis. Where like my store in San Francisco, we were pretty protected. I worked on Powell Street, so it was like downtown, so there's like no customers. And they were kind of wishy-washy on sending PPE, like face masks, gloves, stuff like that. But I think a lot of other, especially people are in our committee that also work for retail, um, had a lot worse time with getting the protective equipment, getting any kind of response or solution from like corporate and the market leaders and stuff like that. So I think it, and then, customers, they don't want to wear their masks. It's just kind of the typical stuff that we still see, but during, this time last year, like almost at the height of when it was getting worse and then it was better. And so I don't know, that was kind of my experience with the COVID thing so far.
How did
But I
you?
also work in a,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
go
No,
ahead.
no, go ahead. You go. You
Oh,
go.
I was just gonna say, like, I work in a mall now, because they closed my store down coincidentally or uncoincidentally. I'm not really sure. So I'm working in a different store than when I initially met Chris. I started doing this whole unionizing, organizing thing. Um, and the mall, I mean, we go by mall rules, and now we have to be there a little bit later. They kind of run the show. It's not really much, even less agency than just working on a storefront. Uh,
Yeah.
were you gonna say that?
Well, I was going to ask, like, when you guys decided to start forming this union, I guess before the anti-union efforts came, how did you galvanize enough people in your workforce to be able to make it a tangible threat to the company?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I've worked there for a while. A lot of the people that I had worked with before our store closed had also worked for the company long enough to know how, full of shit they were. Um, and that when I kind of reached out to Chris and started organizing, I told my coworkers about it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, like, that sounds like a good idea. I support you." Um, and I think COVID like really drove it home for me and my coworkers, and presumably a lot of other Lush employees, because it was like, this is the time. Like, these are the absolute worst conditions you could possibly work in. Like, working through a pandemic and being asked to come back for no more money, like not a raise, no hazard pay, nothing like that. Just to come back and to do the same thing. And yeah, I think COVID really galvanized a lot of this movement for retail, I think. Um, but yeah.
So when
Yeah.
you finally had enough people together to try and, pull this off, how does that work in relation to, like, Lush is a monstrously huge multinational corporation. So were you trying to unionize just your local store? Is that it? Or are you actually trying to form like a global Lush union for all the workers of the corporation?
So I think sort of where this started is it might be helpful to kind of go with a bit of a timeline. So um, we started organizing in the warehouse. Like I said, the end of summer 2020 into September, sort of October, and it was sort of as we did that, and with the company's response is where sort of the Global Lush Union came from. Was after that response, we started reading a lot more news articles. We got in touch. Some of us from the organizing committee got in touch with people from Australia who are also organizing,
Oh, nice.
and with comments on the Hive. And the Hive is something that might come up a little bit more. So it's the company's sort of intranet. It's like an internal internet sort of thing. The company makes posts, you comment on them. We had a lot of positive, supportive comments, and we reached out to a few people that way. And sort of the Global Lush Union came out after an initial attempt to organize in Toronto, as a way to support workers who want to organize this company all over. Because we sort of had this realization that, if we're facing this difficulty, that this must be something that other people want. And, the message with any anti-union campaign, I think the message is one of fear, right? You have the person or the group or whoever that signs your paychecks basically saying, don't do this. And that's that's using power to kind of lean on people. And we want to just sort of stand up to that in whatever way we could to make it easier for anybody to organize. And that's sort of where glue comes from, in my view.
So what happened when the anti-unionization efforts started on Lush's part?
I mean, what happened with me? So, like Chris was talking about the Hive, they had put out some virtue signaling article story about Immigrants Day, and then they made a post about fragile democracy on like January 7th or whatever. And so I commented, and this was like after the anti-union leaflets had gone out and they had really started their drive. So I had commented on both of those posts saying like, maybe you should celebrate your own immigrants working in your own manufacturing, and like you should let them unionize, #union, whatever. And then the other one was, well, unionizing is also a democracy and you're infringing on it. It was something to that effect. And I got a non-disciplinary disciplinary letter from our HR, and my manager pulled me into the back. We had a talk pretty much when he asked me, why do you want to join a union? What is a union? What can Lush do better? Like very, those kind of questions. And so I filed an unfair labor practice charge against him, and that's still kind of pending. But the
nice.
San Francisco
well done.
Yeah, I mean the San Francisco NLRB found merit, and yeah, we'll fucking see what happens. Excuse me, but yeah, it's kind of been.
Fuck yeah, that's a really big pushback. Like a lot of people would have just been like, "Oh, I'm worried about losing my job. I'm done." Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, shit, man, I won't lie. Like, it's not made working easier, especially in the store I'm in now. I don't really know anybody. I've only gotten to know one person. And again, I don't know if this is by design or whatever, or I'm just being crazy, but it's super isolating and it makes it like really difficult to go to work. Because I also have to work with that same manager. It's like a whole fucking thing.
Wow. Someone in chat is asking, can you talk a little bit more about what is an unfair labor practice charge, how that works?
Yeah, so normally, if this wasn't through the union, you would say, hey, this company is whatever. You can't talk about your wages. I'm going to file a thing. You would reach out to the NLRB and say, hey, I'm basically accusing Lush of doing this. Here's the receipts, text messages, whatever. And then the NLRB will file the charge and then look through it. And then you have to like take an affidavit on it. And then once they find merit, they either become like the prosecutor or they say there's nothing there. If that kind of helps.
Yeah, no, totally. So obviously you both don't feel weird talking about any of this openly though. So the genuine threat at coming public about any of this is not going to be as powerful as your desire to tell the story, I suppose.
Not at all. No. I think there's also power in being open about what you believe and what you think is the right thing to do. I mean, unionizing in both the US and Canada is protected activity, right? So you cannot be disciplined. It's illegal to discipline people. It's illegal to reprimand people for talking about unions or wanting to unionize. That doesn't mean that companies don't skirt the line.
Yeah.
But it does mean that you have some power behind you. And I mean, whatever the cost is, in my view, is it's still worth fighting for what you think will make the world a little bit of a better place and the company a little bit of a better company. I mean, there have been, I don't know if this is the right time to jump into this, but I do want to tell one story quickly.
Yeah, of course.
there was a gentleman that I worked with, and I hope he's okay with me telling this story, but I really think it's an important one to tell.
You can
So
just
he's a
keep his name
seasonal,
a secret or something like that.
yeah, I'll keep his name a secret. Um, but he's a seasonal employee. This last year was about his fourth or fifth year. Um, as a seasonal employee. And that means he wasn't working just like 2 months or 3 months out of the year. You know, a lot of times he'd be working 5, 6, 7, 8 months, 9 months, sometimes the whole year straight on a seasonal contract. And that's with less money, no benefits. And I mean, you could not find a harder worker. You could not. He would stay overtime 3, 4 days a week just to make sure that whatever he was tasked with got done. He took on extra responsibilities all the time. He worked through lunch on a regular basis. And he just worked as hard as you could imagine anybody working. And he was encouraged regularly to work harder, because at the end of that is this idea of a core contract. And core contracts for seasonal workers mean stability, right? It means benefits. It means being able to kind of just relax a little bit. And we were talking about it recently. He even said to me, like, the way they run these seasonal programs, the seasonal contract thing, is a form of bullying. Like, you really get people to compete with each other, and people do damage to themselves trying to. You know, people work 12-hour shifts. I know people that were encouraged to work 24-hour shifts. It was like a test of your endurance. It was a test of like your strength, your masculinity. Like, this is how it's phrased to you. And you know, it ended up that just as he ended up getting a core position, he hurt his back. He hurt his back really bad.
Brutal.
He has a herniated disc. He has to go through therapy. He has to go through to a chiropractor. And you know, he's still working out these claims with the insurance company and WSIB. But you know, he's in like his early 20s.
Wow.
And his back is so bad that sometimes he just can't come to work because his back is so broken. And it's entirely because he worked so hard at a time when, and everybody demanded kind of that he worked so hard, that he literally broke his back for these core contracts.
So
And
he's being worked to
you know,
death, basically.
yeah. And this isn't uncommon for seasonal staff. You know, you see people comment about stuff like, you know, I was seasonal once, I worked my ass off for this job. And you know what, that might have been true, but now people are still working their ass off and it's not really getting them anywhere. And you see people do that. And I think when you see that and you kind of go through it, you know, you can't stay silent about that stuff. You got to stand up. You have to fight. You have to do something, because that's not right. You know, that's just not fair.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you started these unionization efforts. Have you officially formed a union? Like, how far has that come?
I mean, the honest answer is that it's ongoing, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't want to underplay the effectiveness of an anti-union campaign. I mean, you heard what Max said. Yeah. You know, like when that's the level of oversight the company has and the level that they will kind of go to, I think it sends a message to everybody. You know, they had before the anti-union stuff, from my experience, almost everybody I talked to thought it was a great idea. You know, people willing to sign cards, they're willing to kind of get involved. But as soon as that anti-union, I don't know what to call it, their anti-union kind of push started, and it started with leaflets. You know, it started with captive audience meetings where they pulled people together and said things like, you know, don't be tricked. You know, which incidentally, I saw some stuff from Amazon in New York recently that came out, and it was almost verbatim the stuff that Lush was putting out, which blows my mind. Lush is supposed to be up here, and Amazon, you know. But anyway, I don't want to insinuate that one is worse than the other. But I was surprised, and you know, it creates a sense of fear. People don't want to talk. People are worried about what this means for their future at that point. And that's a hard thing to undo. And that's kind of why I think like the Global Lush Union and all this attention is so important, is that the only way to kind of build back from this, from my view, in terms of like an ethical company, like that, to me, that's anti-democratic, right? You disrupted a democratic process. You used your power to push down on people's voices. And I think, it's on Lush to make this right. It's on, Mark Wolverton. It's on Peter Higgins to sit down and say, you know what? We made a mistake with the way we reacted to this. We support people's rights to unionize. We support unions in other countries and our ethical buying policy. We partner with unions. We've sponsored union organized. But when it comes to our own workers, you have to walk the walk.
Yeah.
And, the only way for them to walk the walk at this point is to say, we apologize. We're sorry. We made a mistake here.
The lengths that they're willing to go instead of just saying we fucked up is insane. They're willing to just say and do anything to not admit guilt. And it is fucking crazy to me. This would all stop if they just said, we totally are bad. This is completely our fault. We're willing to sit down with you. You totally can join a union. We're not going to try to stop you. That's it. That's all I have to do. And it's insane that a company that Chris is talking about, or was talking about, that holds all these values, simply just won't say my bad. It's crazy. Make it make sense, Yeah,
we always talk about, there's a number of values that Lush has. And, I always think of these ones: be real and lead fearlessly.
And be curious.
And be curious. Yeah, but there's these values that they teach people kind of that going into their leadership. And, this is a chance for Lush to kind of reevaluate itself. And, this is a moment in history too, where I think a lot of people are learning to reflect. And I think it's important for companies especially to reflect and say, what are we doing to actually make the world a better place? And it's a very easy thing to do. I think it connects with the environmental movement. It connects with, any kind of social movement or people's movement that, if you help bring a little bit of power from the top of something down to all these people at the bottom, you make it a little bit more democratic. That's a better way to build their future, and that's a better way to build the company overall. And I hope Lush recognizes that, and that they apologize and they make it a real democratic process. Because I just want to say, I have no problem if somebody else on the floor, with me, if they don't want a union, that's your opinion. We can talk about it. That's great. That's not an issue. The issue is when a company uses their power, because they have the ability to call meetings. They have the ability to corral everybody, stop work and say, we don't want you to have a union. Here's all the reasons unions are bad. And then stop taking questions whenever they want to stop taking questions. And we don't have these same rights. Organizers can't walk on to a job site and talk to people. Because of COVID, we can't really have meetings outside of work. And and if I'm walking around and talking to people, I was told a few times, you got to stop talking to people. You can't talk to people now. You can't talk to people on lunch because it violates COVID protocols. We were really put on the lower part of that uphill battle. And that's just, that abuse of power is a wickedly anti-democratic thing. And I
think it's it's shocking but not surprising.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of, through again the COVID, the bring everything just kind of fucking mask off, even though we all had to put our mask on. Companies really showed who they were, and I think the majority of people, maybe not the majority, maybe I'm generalizing, but a lot of people were oh my God, they're making them work through this. This is crazy. It's that was their intent all along, I think.
Are none of the actions that they're doing illegal under labor practices? The idea of handing out anti-union pamphlets or holding team meetings to talk about people or anything that happened to you?
Well, Max filed the charge.
Yeah, what they did for me was illegal.
Okay.
Well, we got to see if it's illegal still. It's not sure yet.
Yeah, it's not 100%.
What's the best case scenario from that charge?
I haven't even thought about it.
Fair enough.
I'll be real with you. I haven't even thought about it because it's taken forever.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to, it's just taking a long time. So that's it. But
and on the
speak on that.
On the Toronto side of that, we have filed charges at the Ontario Labour Relations Board as well. Some of them include the anti-union leaflets, increased surveillance of employees, and my termination. So I mentioned before that I was off for a little bit. In the end of December 2020, a lot of people in our department who had been seasonal there for about a year and everybody expected to continue were cut. And this is the sinister thing about seasonal contracts too, is they can kind of cut you like that, right? Mm-hmm. It's not firing, they're just not renewing your contract. And about 35, 40 of us were cut, and they brought people from another part of the business, which, weren't as interested in organizing at the time, and moved them in to take those positions. And we felt that was an unfair labor practice charge in itself, terminating me. And I was one of the more vocal people involved in the union, as well as a lot of people who had worked there. It's an effort to, getting a union in Ontario is and in a lot of places about numbers, right? You get a certain number of cards signed and then you have a vote. So when you take people out and put new people in, you mess up all those numbers. And I think that was part of their end goal. Yeah.
And I also believe that they're not obligated to also tell the union how many people work at the warehouse, mm-hmm. which is also crazy.
Yeah, no, that's wild.
Yeah. So,
I guess one of the next questions would be, so you've come thus far, you're still trying to form a union. Are you partnering with other organizations to achieve that? Like IWW, other unions in the field, other successful unions for other organizations that already have power?
So we've been organizing with Workers United Canada Council. They've been giving us all kinds of great advice along the way. They've been supporting our charges at the Ontario Labour Relations Board, the National Labour Relations Board. So they're the primary group I think that we're working with. But we're also reaching out to all kinds of other groups and getting we have some great response from some local politicians. I'll shout out Matthew Green. He's been a phenomenal
nice.
Yeah,
friend of the show. He's been on before.
Oh yeah. He's. I mean, I can't say enough good about Matthew Green. But
he's based. Yeah.
So I don't know what there's been some other ones, but I think the main ones, Workers Unite. I don't know, Max, you want to expand on? Oh, and the Australian workers and what is it? Unite. Unite. What's the union in Australia?
I think are they not Workers United too?
United Workers Union.
Yes.
That's it.
Here you go.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the United Workers Union in Australia has been really good too.
So you've partnered with a handful of these organizations. What's the next stage? Like, to me, a lot of this is news, right? Like, I know about the outward performative wokeness of a company like Lush, but then to say, like, you made like some, I don't know, Facebook comment or a tweet or something, and that alone probably got enough traction that they got mad that they had to reprimand you. But is that basically the only times anyone is ever like, hey, you are doing this on the surface, you're promoting these ideas that you're pro Black Lives Matter and you're pro this and you're pro that, well, at the same time you're trying to quash union efforts in your own company? Does anyone actually know about this? Is that story being told?
I mean, definitely the anti-union part, but there's like a few Vice articles. There's 2 Vice articles that were pretty well covered that both of us are featured in. That kind of gives a pretty good background, I guess, to the whole thing. So the story's being told, definitely. And our Twitter's been pretty cool. Mm-hmm. 2K people followed us overnight, which was crazy.
What's your at? We could probably get another couple hundred right now.
Yeah, it's at Global Lush Union.
At Global Lush Union. Hey, all 500 of you, go follow this right now. All of you, go follow at Global Lush Union. Give them some follows right now. Increase their power. Increase their social media reach.
And while you're there, we also have a petition that we're asking people to sign. You can click to the link to. We have a whole website that lays out basically everything we're talking about now. But I do think that, in terms of the sort of next steps that we're talking a little bit too, the importance of sort of social media and the importance of, telling this story, I don't think can be understated. I think it's a really good question because I honestly believe, and we've seen this sort of support, that most of the customers, Lush's customers, we call Lushies, they want to buy ethical products. And to almost everybody, worker input, unionization, that adds value to an ethical product, right? And the more we tell this story, I think the more power we have, not just in one location, but in changing the kind of pushing, allowing people the space to organize without being sort of so uh, oppressed by the I don't know if that word's too strong to use, but without trying to face the same kind of backlash that we've faced so far.
Yeah.
No, I think that's totally fair. I mean, you are being oppressed by the owners of that corporation to not unionize against the will of the workers themselves. That is oppression. I was going to ask then, so what's the next phase? So where does it go from here? Outside of obviously trying to get your story told.
I mean, honestly, like, just getting as much, yeah, I mean, really just like as much public support and like definitely employee support. And we've been able to reach out to people like all across the country, in the US, Australia, other parts of Canada. Like, there's been we've had like a pretty big reach, and it's pretty cool. And I think that's kind of like the ongoing next step, is like just making sure everyone's aware, making sure everybody like feels heard, and that there's like a place and a group of people that like do think Lush is full of, whatever. And they are union busting, and they are like doing these stuff. I think that just, the awareness of it. I don't know. Chris, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think like the awareness of it is a big piece, and continuing to organize and talk to our coworkers and say, and create that sense of security, because I think we're still overcoming that fear that the company instilled. And it wasn't just at one location. They put these things up on the Hive. They sent messages out to managers all across North America, talking about giving them talking points for how to deal with people talking about unions. And, this isn't the first time that Lush has been through this. They have some talking points prepared. There have been efforts previously, and this is how they're choosing to operate. Instead of kind of dealing with their workers in good faith, they're using fear. And so I think, there's a lot of this work that has to be done internally, in terms of us talking to our coworkers and saying, no, like, this is the right thing to do. And if we stand up for it, like, we can get it, and we can build a better company that's also better for us to work at. And the other side of that is encouraging, Lushies and people who love to buy Lush products to also support us. By the way,
how can they support you? If someone's wanting to shop at Lush and they're a big Lushie,
it's a weird paradox.
I've got some great. So I think there's a couple. One, follow us on Twitter. Secondly, sign our petition, please. If you want to get involved in the Global Lush Union, please, you can send us an email through our website, and we'll get back to you and try and get you involved. And, if you want to go to a store and just ask workers what they feel like, or if you're ordering online, especially if you're on the East Coast, if you order online, it comes from my building. It comes from the Toronto distribution facility. If you order something online and you write something like, we support a union for Lush workers, or we support Lush workers' right to choose a union, something positive and uplifting, the people who read that are the people picking the orders. The people who read those things are like people who have, people who are, they're on the floor there. So you can, if you want to buy something online, go ahead, buy it, and send like a wonderful message. Send something really supportive.
That
and
is
help
such a cool idea. I mean, I should have been doing that for years. I never do that when I buy an Amazon product. I could easily add that into the notes. Like, by the way, I support Amazon union workers, and if you want to learn more, you should go to this link. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Though. So keep going off. You were spouting fire. Like great advice.
I just think it's it's an encouraging thing to see. A lot of times the notes are really fun. We all have fun reading them. So you can throw something in there that helps let everybody know that there's power behind them as well, because there's power in are organizing, and there's also power that people have as consumers. And, you know, the whole point of Lush actually is based on the power that people have as consumers. It's that choice to choose an ethical product. And the same way that we all choose ethical products when we buy, we can hold those quote unquote ethical companies accountable. And we can remind them that, you know, we want ethical products. And that power is ours as consumers as much as it is ours as workers.
Yeah. Do you think you'll ever get to a vote?
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have an idea of what that'll entail, when that could take place? Because I think once it starts to get closer to that, that's when you start getting like national attention kind of thing.
When would it take place? It's tough to say a date. I mean, I think it's really...
I mean, as cliche as the term is, it's like a game of chess right now. You know what I mean? Like,
and you're the pawns.
When we do stuff, they respond, but they have more pieces than we do. You know. So
sometimes they move in L's. It's wild.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes they're diagonal.
Yeah. But when it comes down to it, like, what do you need in order to force a vote, or even to hold one, to form a union? Like, are the numbers daunting? Do you need to reach like 1,000 employees who are going to vote on it? Does it have to be just your local like store, and that alone can like trigger a domino effect? How does this work?
I mean, we've definitely discussed like, okay, we should just do this department, should take a vote because we have the numbers. Mm-hmm. Or okay, my store before totally had the numbers, but I think kind of what we're trying to build is like, it's really everybody. Like, everybody will be able to take a vote in their own department around the similar times. But it's not, the foothold thing can sometimes be a little like, it's a 50-50. Like, yes, you get one department unionized, but then, you know, how do you carry that momentum on? Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of been the conversation we've had amongst ourselves of like, you know, what kind of are the next steps that way.
Well, my experience with the Amazon unionization efforts is that anywhere it tries to pop up, even if it's just one like branch or fulfillment center, then Amazon will collectively do everything they can to crush the freedom fighters in that case, right? So if that's the idea, if you have the numbers, wouldn't the first stage be to successfully unionize one of your branches, or just start there and then watch the ripple effect once people realize there's more worker rights and a better quality for their employees?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree necessarily with that as a tactic. I also don't disagree with what Max said as a tactic, but I think still that where we're at is, you know, overcoming what this culture of fear that Lush has created, at least from a warehouse perspective. Like, it's you know, they've done, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of work to make it hard for people, to make it scary for people to want to speak up. And, you know, until we can do something kind of about that, until Lush apologizes, I think a lot of people are going to be scared. And that's sort of our goal with Glue, right? Is to draw attention to this and make Lush recognize that is a value. I mean, it's you know, we could just kind of probably go to a vote whenever, but if people are afraid of how their boss is going to react, if they're afraid that the company is going to fight them tooth and nail, like, I think this is probably true of Amazon or anywhere. You know, people I think kind of intuitively know that like a union is a good thing, but you also have to think that you have this company who's hell bent on destroying you. Like, what is going to be the collateral damage? Mm-hmm. And when that's the message the company is sending, when they're sending you messages of war, what are you supposed to perceive?
Right.
And to me, like, that's just so antithetical to Lush's values. And that's what I want to focus on, is I want that recognized, and I want Lush to recognize that, because
the hypocrisy.
It is. It's outright hypocrisy, and it's I mean, I don't know what to. I wish I had a better descriptive word for that, to hypocrisy there. But like, it's you know, and until something is done about that, I think I think it's going to be. I think it's hard to give a timeline. It's hard to create like a real plan, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I've got some questions for chat. Do you mind if I ask them?
Sure.
What are some of the What are the types of software and hardware tools union organizers can use that are currently out there? And also, what would you have done differently now that you have the value of hindsight?
What do you think they might mean by software and hardware?
So for software, it would be, is there like computer programs, like something easy like Google Docs, for example, something that's free for everyone to use, you can use really effectively to help organization efforts, ways to track you. But is there something else that you use in particular to try and, supersede what Lush might be trying to preventing you from do?
Mm. I mean, in Global Lush Union, we use a lot of Zoom because we're sort of like international. So you're talking, people in the U.S., Canada, Australia, all over the world. We've used Google Docs pretty well, and it's been a good thing. But I will say that I don't think that there's anything better than face-to-face conversations, group conversations with your coworkers.
No. Yeah.
And in terms of what would you do in hindsight?
I mean, how hindsight are we talking? Because I would have started doing this years ago.
Oh, so it's start early. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I think this is the unique situation of COVID, at least for retail, again, specifically for retail. Like this kind of egregious stuff that's been going on has been going on for a while, like a long while. And like I was saying before, the pandemic really took the mask off for a lot of employees to see, they don't really care. Because I'm sure there could have been multiple unfair labor practice charges put against them, like every single year. I think in hindsight, like trying to reach out to the people in manufacturing and doing that kind of activist work and organizing work, hindsight for me, definitely.
And sorry, the question was sorry, I misread it. What tech do you wish was available that you didn't have access to? Like, is there something that, like a union app? I don't know.
I'm going to sound a little bit curmudgeonly, but like, I'm really bad at, I had to download Skype today.
Well, yeah, people in chat are like, their Instagram account has 0 posts. They got to start getting their social media game up.
Yeah. I mean, we were really focused on Twitter. Twitter, I think Twitter has been a really great place for us. And like, when there's a lot of conversation on Twitter, people actually talk back with each other. Instagram, I haven't seen as much of that. So we've been really, but yeah, in terms of apps and stuff like that, I don't think there's no shortcut. There's no shortcut to organize, like, talk with your coworkers.
Like, yeah, you gotta do the face-to-face talk, and that is all activism. That is all organizing. Like, an app can't really break it down. Like, sure, it can make it easier to message, but like really having, I would love to go to Toronto, shit, and like talk to people in the warehouse. Like, I don't know. It's another thing about COVID. It's made it really hard to make this organizing thing easier, because that's how you get through to people, is the face-to-face thing.
What would your advice be to trying to talk to coworkers who would be apprehensive about all this?
Yeah. You want to go?
Sure. I mean, I would just say be honest. I mean, it's really easy. Don't go into, I would say you don't want to go into a conversation hoping for an outcome, right? You guys are going into that conversation together. It's really easy to go in and be like, I'm going to convince this person. It's like, no, you're not there to convince somebody. You're just there to have a conversation. Yeah,
you're there to listen. You're there to like be interested, be empathetic to how they're feeling about working there. Ask, how do you like working here? What, like, is it going well? Like, is it really, like, what would you want to change? Like, it's like, those are the really, but it's stupid, because it doesn't have to be, what would you change here? It's like, it's a natural thing once you like get to know somebody a little bit, and you get to be able to talk to them a little bit, to like organically flow into, okay, well, there's a different way of doing this, and like, Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's my perspective, because I did the whole AA thing, and like the whole steps is a lot of this. Um, so I don't know. That's kind of where my perspective comes from. But that
Does that mean at a certain point you're going to get to the forgiveness phase and forgive your corporate overlords? Isn't that like step 6 or something?
hell no, no. No, but yeah, for real, like, to employees out there that might be watching, it's like, be empathetic for your coworker and listen to them. Unless they're like some just crazy asshat right wing person, then that's a little different. But like, there is still some like grain of salt you can take from there, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm not getting paid enough." Okay, well, how much you think you're worth? Oh, I don't know. Well, let's talk about that. Whatever. Um,
Yeah, I think it's such a shame that people are scared to talk about their salaries or their wages to each other at jobs, because like obviously it's seen as such a faux pas, right? Like, oh, don't discuss your salary. Come on, whatever.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's a completely fabricated thing. Like, that's illegal in the U.S. at least, is for a company to tell you can't talk about your wages with your coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
You can file an unfair labor practice against whomever for disciplining you or making up some esoteric rule that isn't real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're totally allowed to say, how much are you getting paid? Hey, manager, how much are you getting paid? You know?
Yeah, I think like I actually can't stress enough. And I don't think I learned this until a little bit too late in life. Not too late in life, but later than I wish I had learned it. Like, talk about your wages. Talk about how much you make. Talk about how much that person makes.
Talk about your working conditions. Talk about if you have to pee in a bag or a bottle instead of like driving, to a washroom.
Right.
Like, tell your story.
Bag or bottle.
Yeah. Y'all don't have that problem, right? It's not that bad.
No.
that's good. Is there a little bit of hopium at the end of all this you wanna end on? Like, you feel that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that this could all. I mean, it feels to me like you're not in any way defeated. You seem more resolved than ever to make sure this happens, which is really inspiring, despite everything that's happening to you.
Yeah, I mean, the support is the hopium. Like, honestly, like, it's social media, it's a cloud economy, but like the true amount of people that are like, oh, I don't want to buy from Lush unless they're unionized. I want to be, get stuff that's unionized, and just the overwhelming support has really been like super awesome to see. And I don't know, for me personally, that's helped me want to keep working there, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's hope for us, for like the labor movement in general, because like you said too, Lush is a huge corporation.
Oh yeah.
Not like Amazon big, but
So where can everyone find all your shit so they can help you out, sign petitions, all that? Do you want to do one big plug for all the places, the social medias?
I would say go to Twitter. I think it's at Global Lush Union. The link to our petition is in our Twitter description. That'll take you to our website. So if you got to remember one thing, remember at Global Lush Union.
Yeah.
Go there, go to Twitter, check us out. And if you're going to buy anything online, send a cute little pro-union message.
Yeah. And our Instagram is also a work in progress. So it does exist. And like, feel free to follow it. It's the same at Global Lush Union. We just don't have any posts right now. That's it.
Awesome. Well, hey, Christopher, Max, thank you so much. Solidarity with both of y'all. It was awesome talking to you.
Thank you
for
much.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing this
really
story. Yeah. Take it easy, guys.
See ya.
Thanks for having us on. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye.
See ya.
Well, that was awesome. Please, everyone, go sign that petition. Go follow that Twitter account. I know I will be doing the same for both. Well, I'm already following the Twitter account, but I'll sign the petition. Ashley is dutifully spamming the chat right now, so you can see nothing but links. So many links. Hey, do you like movies? Do you like Serfs? Do you want movies and Serfs watching the movies? So then come over to the new channels. It's the Serfs the cinema. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Can you do the thing, that thumbs up and comment and all those things that help us out in the algorithm that controls every aspect of our lives? Also, if you happen to have a Facebook account, can you delete it? Like just delete it. You should probably delete your Facebook account because it's not a great company. But hey, if you can't do that for whatever reason, I understand. And could you also go to facebook.com/thesurftimes then and give us a little like and a follow. We're just trying to push back against the fact that people like Ben Shapiro happen to dominate the platform entirely. And when everyone asks why do older generations believe the things they believe, one of the problems is the majority of them on social media use Facebook. So to counter that, we're just going to be on there too now. Also, if you happen to have a union or a worker co-op or even a leftist project, podcast, website, Zoom, MySpace, it doesn't matter. We will advertise it for free on this channel. All you got to do is go to weareserfs.com and use the forms that we got there, weareserfs.com. Thanks, everybody.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and VK Jehannam, we are prepared to commit human sacrifices for your eternal glory. To our monarchs, the Tim Caucus and Tom Spiker, we are humbled to be your oafish jesters, clowning around in your royal court. To our lords, Evan Nudie, Tofox, Ryan Lubin, Trevor R., Jeff Lamb, and Alexander Thaler, we shall proudly carry your standard onto the battlefield and die for your precious land. To our esteemed Knights of the Round Table, Dark Puppy, Jenna Towell, Anna Loves Riley, Quiet 185, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Chronic to Hemphog, The Great Pudini, Bongini, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramona Costa, J. Fraser Cartwright, Jimmy Bignuts, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Yopi, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our glass, we raise our swords, and we salute you.